My name is Lisa Chase, and I'm a professor at University of Vermont Extension and the director of the Vermont Tourism Research Center. And today, I am very excited that we are going to be discussing agritourism and racial justice in the US. This virtual gathering is the 6th in a series leading up to the International Workshop on Agritourism, which will take place in person in Vermont in August of 2022. We made the decision to postpone the conference for yet another year in hopes that global travel will be back in full swing by 2022. In the meantime, we are planning to keep the virtual connections going through these monthly gatherings. And we're also looking into other creative ways to strengthen the agritourism network. We are definitely open to new ideas for connecting and new topics and speakers. So please get in touch with me at any time if you have suggestions. A major sponsor for this conference and for these virtual gatherings is Yonder, a new booking site that promotes farm stays and other nature-rich guest experiences. Founded and advised by farmers, Yonder highlights stewards that have a connection to their local community, practice environmental responsibility, and exhibit hospitality that's reflective of this commitment. Through the Yonder site and app, guests can discover and book overnight stays and activities at farms in the US and also in Europe. Yonder is expanding around the world, and they have been an important partner for the International Agritourism Network that was launched at the first World Congress on Agritourism in Italy in 2018 and was organized by UREC Research. Until we can meet again in person at the conference in Vermont in August of 2022, we're continuing to build this network through these virtual gatherings. In just a moment, we're going to dive into today's discussion on racial justice, but first, let's get a sense of who's here with us. I'm going to launch a poll. So you should see on your screen a poll that says, describe yourself. Check all that apply, and you can choose as many hats that fit on your head. As you spend a moment filling that out, I want to mention that we had about 400 people registered from just about every state in the US and about 20 different countries, which is impressive since this is a topic that we figured racial justice is tricky enough to discuss just here in the US. We won't even try to tackle it in other countries, but we appreciate that there's such broad interest. Why don't you take one more minute to fill it out, and then I'll end the polling and we'll see who's with us today. And I also want to mention that in addition to checking the boxes, feel free to go into chat, not Q&A because that's reserved for questions, but go into chat and let us know who you are, where you're from, and what your interest is with this topic. These webinars can feel kind of impersonal. And so, we wish we could all be together in one big room together, looking at each other's faces and having side conversations and getting to know you. Since we can't do that, chat is our best substitute. So feel free to type it in and let us know who you are. Let's see, you should, Lynn, do you give me a thumbs up if you see the results there? Okay. So, it's a slightly different mix today. Little more nonprofits, about a quarter nonprofits. We have about 21% farmer, rancher, producers, and we have quite a few service providers, government agencies, educators, researchers, and tourism professionals, a good mix. I'm gonna stop sharing this and I'm gonna put up one more poll that's specific for today. You should now see on your screen another poll that says, how often are you involved with the work of racial justice and agritourism? When we were planning and preparing for this, the panelists all met about a week ago on Zoom. And one of the panelists, who you meet in a little bit, Martinique, asked whether this is the first time we're having a public forum about this topic, whether this is sort of the first big conversation. And we had to stop and say, wait a minute, this may be the first time that we're having a public forum specifically on agritourism and racial equity and justice. I mean, certainly we've touched on these issues, and within both food systems and tourism, there are regular conversations on racial equity and justice, but specifically on agritourism, that overlap between agriculture and tourism, which is defined as when a farm, ranch, or vineyard opens to visitors for experiences or product sales. I think this is a relatively new area for deliberate discussion about these issues and challenges. And I want to mention that today's conversation is meant just as a starting point. We fully recognize there is a lot of work to be done in this space, and we're really looking forward to exploring these issues with our speakers and with all of you. I'm going to end the poll now and share the results. So it looks like about 40%, most of us here are planning to get involved with the work of racial justice, but aren't quite there yet. And we have an impressive bunch. 14% say they're regularly working on these issues, and 21% say they're occasionally working on these issues. And then there's, of course, some folks that are new to the conversation, and we want to welcome you to this conversation. And now I'm going to introduce our moderator. Oh, and I should mention that one of our speakers, Eduardo Rivera from Sin Fronteras Farm and Foods, sends his regrets. He was sorry he couldn't make it today, but hopes to join us another day. With us moderating today, we have Lynn Schimoler. She works in the Agriculture Development Division at the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. Lynn has over 25 years of experience in the private sector, having managed markets in the US on both coasts. In her spare time, she has about 10 different other activities, including she's a trustee for the Vermont Land Trust. She serves on the Vermont Women's Fund Council. She is on the executive board of the Real Organic Project, and she is also a part-time dance lecturer at the University of Vermont. Lynn, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm gonna lead it to you to take over from here on.
Thanks, Lisa. It's really great to be here with all of you today. And thank you so much for just sort of try to ground us in the conversation for today. Because we're really hoping to explore what does it look like to be farming for diversity, equity, justice, and inclusion? What does it look like to be a traveler, a tourist focused on diversity, equity, justice, and inclusion? We've got two great panelists here today. I know Karen's in the room currently, and so I do want to just get started by introducing Karen Washington. Karen is a farmer and activist. She is co-owner farmer at Rise and Root Farm in Chester, New York. An advocate and food activist. In 2010, she co-founded Black Urban Growers, which is an organization supporting growers in both urban and rural settings. In 2012, Ebony Magazine voted her one of their 100 most influential African Americans in the country. And in 2014, she was the recipient of the James Beard Leadership Award. Recently, in 2020, Essence Magazine named Karen one of their essential heroes. I'm really honored to be here today with Karen. Karen also serves.
Go ahead, Karen. I think Lynn just froze.
That's okay. Hi, everybody. So I'm Karen Washington, and I guess I'm about to get my presentation. So let me just share my screen and we can get started.
And feel free to add to your introduction, Karen, since kind of got cut off in the middle there.
Don't worry, folks. So this is moi. Okay, so again, my name is Karen Washington. I've been doing this work for over 30 years. Started really in community garden work in New York City, and now I'm with my friends. So here's my friends. We're Rise and Root Farm, and so we are 4 women. 2 of us are women of color. Three of us are LGBTQ women, and I like this sort of saying because we are women who farm, and we traded our Metro cards for tractors. And so this journey began, I would say, around 2008 when we went on a women's retreat, and we decided, you know what, one day let's dream big and farm together. And so in 2013, we took a course for Growing YC to follow our dream, to make sure that we had a business plan, to make sure that we were financially ready. And in 2014, I retired as a physical therapist. Jane left her job as a director of farm school. Lori was just coming back from a farming duty in Santa Cruz, and Michaela was starting her business. And so we started to like throw out our dreams, and we got 3 acres, folks, 3 acres up in Chester, New York. That 3 acres is prime real estate. It's in a black dirt. And if anyone knows about the black dirt region up in Chester, New York, it's rich in organic matter. 40% of organic matter is in the soil. And as a result, we grow the best vegetables, but we also grow the best weeds. But this journey has taken us to really look at food justice and social justice in a way that hasn't been looked before, because our intention as farmers is to put food equity and racial justice within our community and within our farm. And so for us, it's been really, really a journey having people come into our farm to visit our farm, because for us, it's not just about growing food. Growing food can be easy. We want to make sure, first of all, that the food that we grow reaches down to all people, especially communities of color, marginalized community, to know that they have to get, and it's dedicated for us to make sure that they have access to fresh local food. That's number one. But then also for people to see us, you'd be surprised how many people have never seen women farmers, let alone Black women farmers, let alone LGBTQ women farmers. And so, we started this journey to make sure that racial justice and inclusion was at the forefront of what we were doing. And so let me take you on this next little journey, because we realized that, again, growing food wasn't enough. And so then how can we sort of get our message that would connect urban and rural growing in rural settings? And so we thought about, agritourism. How can people come and view our farm and look at our farm? Because believe it or not, we had so many people. We have friends, we have family, we have fans that want to follow our journey. And sometimes that can be difficult. And so what we started to do is think of a plan in terms of agritourism and what that would look like. It's not about having people coming to our farm to buy our product. It's people coming to our farm to understand their relationship to land and power. So we've had so many people that want to come to our farm, starting with a lot of businesses. And so this is one of the businesses, Dig In, that came to our farm. A lot of the businesses come to our farm because they need to be grounded and they want to understand what does food and social justice look like. So when we have people come onto our farm, we want to make sure, come and take your shoes off. And we want to do that because we need people to understand that we're on the land of Lenape people that were there before us. And so we want to pay homage to those indigenous farmers that were there before us. And so we want people to take off their shoes, be grounded, and to understand that as farmers, our intention is to be stewards of the land, not in terms of owning the land, to be stewards of the land, to protect the land, to work in food and social justice, and to make sure that when people come to our farm, they understand the relationship to food and history and culture, which is really, really important. Next slide is something that, has encouraged us to really make that urban and rural connection. And that is schools. You'd be surprised how many school children have never, number one, been on a farm, have seen women farmers, have seen Black farmers. And so again, it gives a chance for especially children in urban areas to come out and really, engage in being on a farm, running up and down, taking in the fresh air, getting dirty, and really having a lot of fun, but also understanding where their food comes from. A lot of young people think that their food comes from a grocery store. So for them to actually see where their food comes from and participate and feeling the soil and handling that soil and handing vegetables and fruit, it's really, really awesome and very, very powerful. This next slide is because not only is our farm about growing food, but it's an educational farm. And so we have certain partnerships with, in this case, is Red Hook Farm interns, of people understanding the relationship to growing food, their power and land and access to land. And so many people in New York City, they grow in smaller spaces. So they want to know, how can they grow out and out, but how can they grow more intentionally? And so again, our farm is an educational farmer where we have young people coming to our farm to understand the history around agriculture. I think as a person of color, that history was not taught in our history books. And so it's been taken away from us. It's been discarded, it's been ignored. And so for young people of color to understand that this country was built on the backs of enslaved and indigenous people is very, very powerful. And to change that narrative, to shift that narrative from slavery into a narrative that embraces the culture and history of the African American and indigenous experience. So our next slide is about farm school. So farm school, the New York School of Urban Agriculture. A lot of us got our roots started in farm school. So what farm school is a school that is really rooted in food and social justice. Many of us were part of the curriculum. We were part of building this farm school, which really integrates a lot of indigenous knowledge, a lot of knowledge from hands-on instruction, from our elders, which is really, really important. And so most of us, well, all of us were teachers. So I used to teach advocacy and season extension. Lori was teaching transformational leadership. Jane was teaching small business enterprise. And Michaela was teaching community food arts. And so we've all had a play in a part in developing farm school. As a matter of fact, they're just about to open up their 30 cohort people coming into the new class, which is really, really important. And so we have this relationship also with the Board of Education, but this particular group, Morris Park Campus, which is located in the Bronx, is really doing excellent work in getting students to understand their relationship to food, to culture, to justice, and what does that look like. They grow a lot of food. A lot of that food is used on their campus, in their kitchen, but also they do a lot of growing in terms of making sure that the community understands that these are the future farmers that are going to one day be serving their community as well. And so another thing that we do is events. And so I had to put this event up, of course, because it was my Medicare party, y'all, as a result when I turned 66. So I wanted to have a huge celebration of my friends, my family, my fans to come to the farm and celebrate. And so we all at our farm do events to make sure that people have a place that they can come and feel comfortable about. And then again, sharing their story, sharing their culture, sharing their themes. And I think that's really, really important when we talk about agritourism. And so because so many people want to follow us and so many people want to come to the farm, it's important to sort of structure that visit because people know about our journey, they know about our story, and our farm is open. So the fact is that even though we love y'all, you can't be coming up, every day trying to, ask us questions. So what we did was that we started a community farm day. The other days that I was showing you is fee-based. That means people have to pay, but for this day, it's free. And so we thought that we would have during the summer months from June to October, the last Saturday of the month, we will have community days where people can sign up come to the farm and participate in the work that we're doing, and also get a chance to understand what food and social justice looks like and how they need to participate in really dismantling the social injustices that they see in the day-to-day living experiences. And so, like I said, the last Saturday of the month, and some of the criteria that we ask people to do when they come is, number one, be prepared to get down and dirty. On a farm, you can't come with high heels. You can't come, with sandals. You got to come with your boots. You got to come ready to do some work. I say it's, I call it weeding aerobics, to get down. But at the end of the day, come with your enthusiasm, come with your fun, come with your stories, because again, it's an opportunity to share one another, embrace one another's culture. And so from 10 to 12 is work, okay? You're not sitting down and, wanting to ask, but you're working on the farm. And then from 12 to 1 is an opportunity to have lunch and to share stories and do a Q&A. And then finally, it's about rise and root. We are rooted in equity and justice. And what that means is that time and time again, we really have to educate people about the foundation of this country, really about land and how land was acquired, and some of the atrocities that has happened when it came to displacement of Indigenous people, of enslavement of African people, and to understand that, at the end of the day, we need to have these hard questions about our food system, and how is it that in the greatest country in the world, where we grow enough food, we waste enough food, that food is not getting down to the people that need it the most. And so this is an opportunity. When COVID hit, it really brought to the surface some of the inequities that we already knew when it came to health, when it came to economics, when it came to wealth. And so now's the time to start having those hard conversations, and through the work that we do, we are starting to have those conversations. And so, folks, I welcome you to come to Rise and Root Farm. Hopefully we'll be able to, to get more people to come. Last year, we were only able to, maybe accommodate 10 people because of COVID, but hopefully, the opportunity and the invitation is there for you to come to Rise and Root Farm, hear our story, share our story, and make sure at the end of the day, we pay homage to the people that came before us. So I will stop with that.
Thank you, Karen, so much. And I really look forward to visiting you in Chester, New York, when it's safe to do that. So Martinique has joined us. Yay, I'm so glad that you're here. And I'm also honored to introduce Martinique Lewis to everyone today. She's an award-winning diversity and travel consultant. She's the creative lead for Nomadness Travel Tribe, president of the Black Travel Alliance, and now you can actually add creator of the ABC Travel Green Book. #1 resources connecting travelers to the African diaspora globally. She's trusted amongst her peers as a connector. She's always connecting the dots to ensure the travel industry is mindful of diversity, not just as a buzzword, but an action that produces the results. So I'm going to turn this over to Martinique to start to talk a little bit about her work and vision.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much. I was supposed to go before Karen. So now I'm like, I don't even want to go after Karen because that was absolutely amazing. Karen, thank you, because you set such precedent, but that was just awesome overview. I am Martinique Lewis. I am the one in the industry who helps you connect to inclusive communities online, or just, with your marketing and things that what you do. So I am on the other side of Karen, where she is the actual farmer, and then I'm the actual one who will help you drive more people who look like me to your establishment, or also tell more people about people who look like me, who do farming, who has a vineyard. And so I will share my screen and just go through what I do. Like she said, I am a diversity and travel consultant. So what exactly does that mean? That means that I get hired by tourism boards and travel brands to understand not only the trends and the insights of people of color, but what actually drives them to your destination, what their encouraged to do when they get there, what type of education they're looking for, what type of events they're looking to participate in. Like Lynn said, I am the creative lead of Nomadness Travel Tribe. That is the first Black travel movement to start in America 10 years ago. It used to be a group of expats, but now it's just curious travelers of color who are looking for places to go, who are looking for insights, who additionally want other people's recommendations. And that's one thing about that I can tell you about Black travelers. A lot of our things are based off of recommendation because people want to know where they can go and be safe. People want to know where they have been, and people welcome them with open arms, no matter what they looked like. So not only do we help do those things, but we also help teach about Black travel history. We also help teach about Black farmers like Miss Karen. We also help teach about different things that you can do as a Black traveler when you go to places, or we express things that happen and why you shouldn't go to places. I'm the president of the Black Travel Alliance, a new alliance that started in June of 2020. After the unfortunate death of George Floyd, we were tired of the travel industry acting like it was a certain way, but showing us something different as Black travel professionals. And I'm the creator of the ABC Travel Green Book, which I'll go through here a little bit later, but it is the #1 resource that connects travelers to the African diaspora globally. So if there's a farm in New York, the Green Book will tell you that, but it'll also tell you about the farm, which I saw somebody in here from Ecuador. It'll also tell you about the farm that is in northern Ecuador, where there's a Black community known as the Esmeraldas. So it helps connect those thoughts, because maybe Miss Karen wants to travel to Scotland and there's a Black farm in Scotland, and I want to be able to help her identify exactly where that is. Next slide, please. So what I do in the travel industry that has helped get the attention of people. So one of the things that I do every year is the Diversity in Travel Scorecard. And it might not necessarily apply to what you all do, but what I can do is take off these things and add in things that do apply to what your organization does. So if we say diversity in farming, right? Report card or scorecard. Is there diversity in ads and promotions, right? Is there diversity on your social media pages? Is there diversity in your traditional media, meaning your farmers magazine, any type of things that comes out about agriculture, any type of news reports that comes out about agriculture? When you have travel programs and events like this, is this the first time that you've seen me and Miss Karen be represented? Or is it always somebody who looks exactly the same? Is there ever anybody in a wheelchair that talks about, what happens with people who have a physical disability who want to, actually visit farms or vineyards? Diversity at conferences and trade shows. So you don't have to do necessarily travel, but you can say in farming or agriculture conferences and trade show, do they have presenters that look like me and Miss Karen? Diversity and influencer trips. So if you guys are, or press trips, if you guys are inviting people to your locations, do you get only one type of people, or do you get a Black reporter? Do you get a brown reporter? Do you get a Black journalist? Diversity and inclusion within your companies. I tell people all the time, you can't expect to reach a different demographic externally if internally your actual organization doesn't look different. And then overall diversity in your specific agritourism, realm. And so I would ask you guys to take this and go back with it, right? And to give yourselves these grades. And based off of your grades, then you either know, yes, you're doing something right, or no, you have more work to do. I created something called the Inclusion Bunch that just was showing the industry like the different people you can have, or the different people you should be tapping into. And you notice just from this picture alone, not everybody looks the same, right? There's a 65 and older person. There's LGBTQ couple. There's a Muslim person. There's a person in a wheelchair. There's a South Asian Pacific Islander person. There's a plus size person, and there's a blind person. And then there's me. So if this is what the world looks like every day when we walk outside, this is what this industry should look like as well. Next slide, please. And so the ABC Travel Green Book, why it's even relevant even to this conversation. So this is the book that I created. Like I said, I list on 6 out of 7 continents, continents, where to find Black-owned businesses and Black communities. So if you get this book, or if you have the book and you turn to page 73, it tells you all the Black wineries, all the Black distilleries. And if you go to page 90, it tells you all the Black farms that are not just in America, but that are out of 6 out of 7 continents, because nobody lives in Alaska. But the reason why this book is so powerful is because never before have we had anything that actually magnifies those things. And with Black travel on the rise specifically, we needed to know where we can go to be safe, but we needed to know where we can go to see people like us, because of things like Miss Karen said. This information is left out of the history books, just like this information is nowhere in the tour guides, just like this information is nowhere on travel websites, just like nobody would highlight, you know, what the actual role that Black people had in farming since slavery times. You know, we were the ones harvesting those crops to make sure that other people got money. So to think that we're not interested in this is something that is untrue, or to even understand the whole psychological just mistreatment of Black people in farming, the things that happen. Well, why aren't there so many Black farms? Well, because we weren't able to get loans. Or why aren't you able to get loans? Because of the way we look, and banks weren't giving us the money so that we can keep our farms. And that's why we transitioned out of those things. And so the book helps you identify some of those things, or to really understand why the Black community is the way it is in every single continent or every single country. Next slide, please. Additionally, the type of things that I talk about, I always advocate for people who look different. And so one thing that you will just find for me in general that doesn't necessarily apply to this, but is who I am, I will always advocate for those underrepresented or marginalized communities who don't get a fair chance, right? So one of the things, like I said here, this was on Columbus Day, I was just asking tourism companies, you know, think about when you bring in a Native American or Indigenous person, or Indigenous person into your communities, right? Do you hire them to ask them to do things other than them dancing and drumming, right? Native Americans are the first people here. They know everything about soil and the land. So when you're having any of your conventions, do you bring them in to talk about dirt? Do you bring them in to talk about how to raise different type of things in different types of climates? Do you bring them in for those reasons, or do you bring them in just so that they can entertain people? And this is the type of, I guess, pressure that I apply on the industry to make sure that, one, you're completely mindful, but so that you also are changing your marketing schemes, or even the way that you think when you approach this situation. Next slide, please. I always do facts. So being a part of the Black Travel Alliance, one of the things we do is a lot of research. We love to be able to bring you guys numbers. So I even charge some of your organizations and companies to now get numbers outside of that number that we know, which is that Black farmers make up less than 2% in the United States. But let's dig deeper now. Okay, if that's the case, where are all of these farms founded, right? Or where did they go to school? So you can say, okay, just how she said Black farms, so you can say out of that less than 2%, we know that 90% of them went to farm school, and that's how they were able to elevate in there. Or we know that 50% of them was able to get a loan, and that's why they were able to keep it. Or you can even dive deep and say the ones who lost their land, this is why. Oh, because of gentrification, or because they wanted to put, you know, a highway through. Or you can say they were denied loads this many times. So the thing about numbers is that people can't deny them once you have them. So if you have those numbers, that's one way you're able to change the industry, because now people see it for themselves. This is what really happened. I always encourage people to do numbers, because this is what I do in the travel industry every single day. So just to give you some background, African Americans spend $109.4 billion on tourism a year, right? And these numbers we just got this year because nobody was doing the numbers but every 5 years, right? And it was like, no, this is gonna keep changing, completely different. And one of the main reasons that they're going places is for leisure. But one of the things that they care about is agriculture. So now knowing this number, 109.4 billion, which is only African Americans, right? This is only African Americans. That doesn't mean this is Black British people. That doesn't mean that this is Afropeans. That doesn't mean that these are people in the Caribbeans, only African Americans. So if you can imagine how much they're spending and what they're spending on when they go to places. And so we always love to throw out this numbers, because after you get this, and if you still don't figure out a way to reach this population or to reach this tourism sector, then you are at the disadvantage, because now you know, so you should be doing better, or you should figure out new ways to actually connect with the Black community, whichever way it's gonna be. Next slide, please. One thing that I love to do is to smash negative stereotypes. And so this is just an example, right? You don't think of a Muslim female swimming in her head covering. You don't think of Black people surfing. You don't see Black men in a positive light anytime. They are feared all over the world for no reason, honestly. But these are the things that I always encourage people to do in your marketing, in your advertising. Smash negative stereotypes. Do people think that Black people are farmers? And if they don't think that, show that Black person on the farm. Like she said, not only do people not see Black women as farmers, they don't see Black women who are in the LGBTQ community in that space. So put them on your billboards, put them in your newsletter, show them on your social media, because this way you're smashing negative stereotypes and you're letting people know, we invite you to come here. We want you here. Not only that, we thought about you so much that we put you on here because we recognize that you are not seeing yourselves reflected, and we want to change that, and we want to be part of that change. Next slide, please. This is what people want to see. So you can think about this, and not people, I'm sorry, Black people. This is some things that we want to see, and you can take this back if you're here as a DMO, if you're here as an actual farm, if you're here as an actual anybody in the tourism industry. But we want to see purpose-driven travel. We want to see heartfelt experiences. We want to smash negative stereotypes, and we want to see you lead by example. Those are the things that we're looking for as tourists, right? As tourists coming to your farms, as tourists coming to your vineyards, as tourists coming to your ranches. We want to see you leading by example. We want to see that you want us there, and we want to see that you thought about us 150%. So that's who I am in the travel industry, and I will turn it back over to you.
That was really powerful, Martinique. I really appreciate everything that you were talking about. And I feel like I learned a lot about the tourism piece, and in particular, just having that data point in terms of dollars spent was very eye-opening for me. So I have so many questions for both of you. I want to see if I can also just make sure that I'm keeping up. I know there's a couple questions in the chat. I could spend all day with you both. We don't have a lot of time, but I guess I wanted just to get a little more deeper insight from Karen about the relationships between sustainable agriculture and social justice. And there's a little bit of a part two with that, I think, in terms of just what could be maybe some matching tools for food and farm producers that might complement the equity efforts. I think about it, different business structures such as co-ops can provide different types of opportunities based on their business structure. So that was my first question for Karen. And then Martinique, if you want to add in too, that's fine. I know that's a lot.
Yeah, so first of all, let's talk about what sustainable agriculture and social justice mean, because again, people use those terms, and just like they use those terms, food justice, food sovereignty, all these terms. But for me, I say it doesn't exist. And the reason why I say those terms don't exist is because they've been co-opted. And for me, as a Black person, a person of color, I got to see what you do. And so when we're talking about what social justice and food justice and the food sovereignty is all about, if you look at the movement within those iterations, it's an active movement and not a passive movement. And so when I talk about it, I'm talking about you are actively dismantling the social justice that you see. And so for me, when people come on the farm, we're going to talk about the nitty gritty, because for so long, we have been dominated by racist society, especially when it comes to farming. Like Martinique says, less than 1% of farmers are Black. And yet it was the enslaved and indigenous people that built this country, built this food economy, culinary economy, but yet we don't get the credit. And so it starts with in your organization or in your farm to start having those hard conversations. Number two, what land are you standing on? You know what I'm saying? And to talk about and to give homage to those people that came before us. Start having those conversations about land structure, land ownership. And it's not about owning land, because our ancestors never thought about owning land. They thought about ways of protecting land. And now as we're going through this climate change crisis, it's like, how do we get back to really helping natural resources? And so for me, the conversation is hard, but it's a hard conversation we need to have because of COVID. What COVID has done in all industries it's really brought to the surface the social injustices that we see that runs along race, that runs along demographics, that runs along economics and wealth. And we need to start having those hard conversations. And the time is now, because we're not going back to the way things were. You can't put it back in the bottle. So now is the opportunity for us to embrace our differences, to talk about what we can make change, to make sure that when we talk about agriculture, it's diverse and inclusive. And when I'm talking about diversity and inclusion, that means giving back power into the hands of the community, because you can't do diversity and you can't do inclusion if you don't have a power shift, putting that power back into the hands of people who have been marginalized and victimized by people who for so many years have had power over us. I hope I answered your question.
I think that you did. And I mean, Martinique, I think, alluded to it as well when she talked about who's in your organization and who works within your organization. And I also think about board service and volunteering and all of that with the power structure piece. And Martinique, I don't know if you want to fill in here, but I guess to both of you, can you talk about recommendations for understanding the ways systemic racism and income equality impacts access to your farm products or for the people who participate in your programs?
So Karen, I'll let you say it because you are directly impacted by this. But the first thing is to have the conversation. People ignore that all the time, or people have not even thought, oh my gosh, because people are normally not people, but because people who don't look like me have those opportunities. So they never think about people who don't look like me, that don't have those opportunities, or they don't believe that the fact that we don't have those opportunities is real. And they're like, oh, that happens? Absolutely, it happens. So the first thing is to even acknowledge that that's real life. To acknowledge that, no, we can't get the same loans to keep our farms going, no, the banks don't want to speak to us, or yes, the government came through and they wanted to build a highway through my farm, so I no longer have it. Those are real situations that happen all the time, but I'll let Miss Karen speak to more of that.
Yeah, so you know what, folks, let me tell you something. This food system was built. People say, does the food system need to be fixed? And I was drinking the Kool-Aid. No, it doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to change, because as a farmer, there's a cost and value in what we do. And living in the Bronx, I farm upstate, but I live in the Bronx, and the food system is based on a charity-based subsidized food system. All right. So that most of the food is fast food, junk food, and processed food. Everybody knows that. Come on, folks. Everyone knows that. And so how do you get people who've been so marginalized thinking that food is free? You have to ask them to pay. But you know what? I educate my customers, because there's a price and there's a value in the work that I do, that Martinique does, that we all do. And we need to have those heavy conversations to get out of that subsidy, charity-based model that everything is supposed to be free, and that free food and processed food are dumped into low-income neighborhoods and neighborhoods of color. As farmers, we have to make a change. That number one, to break down that stereotype that this is the food that people need. That's number one. Number two, making sure that everyone has access to healthy food. And number three, to make sure that farmers of color are being paid for the work that we do. We have been discarded. We have been minimalized. Those things have to change, because we do have a voice, and we are part of the agricultural industry, a $1 billion industry, whereby we get penance. We get nothing. And so again, like Martinique says, it starts by having those hard conversations, and I'm sorry, but it has to be done.
Yeah, Martinique, I really in particular appreciated the slide about breaking down the stereotypes. As somebody who is just learning how to surf, it really resonated for me. And a question for you, Martinique, is if you could talk about how agritourism is a viable strategy for both economic diversification for food and farm producers, and then also for eaters, just to address the racial inequity.
Yeah, I mean, it honestly goes so deep. But one thing that people are attached to in tourism is a story behind anything, right? So if you're eating at a restaurant that is a Black-owned restaurant that received all of their things from a Black-owned farm, people are going to go to that restaurant to be able to support those two entities, right? So if it's connected to something, you know, we make that work. But like she's saying, food deserts and stuff, that's real. You're not going to go into a Black community and see anybody really caring about produce, what these kids are eating. You know what I mean? This is where you're going to go and you're going to find the worst pollution because people aren't worried about that top of mind. So yeah, I definitely think that's one way for the first part of your question. What was the other part that you asked? I'm sorry. You asked as consumers, as eaters, but there was a second part to that.
Hold on a second, because I got to go back to my screen here.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. And I think, you know, this, like I said, the slide about stereotypes was just particularly resonated for me. And I think, I guess, just the question was about a food and farm producer that could be diversifying from just providing food to a direct market or through their CSA, and then shifting perhaps to the agritourism piece. Just my question is, what are some strategies that they can address racial inequity by shifting?
Okay, so
right?
some things that they can do. Okay,
model.
yeah. So the first thing I would say is research, right? Do your research. Who is around you that you can tap into directly, right? Or what programs are there already around you that you can tap in and I guess be a liaison, right? To bring people who might not have had the opportunity to have the same type of education in terms of how to grow food or what food could even be or how to use different things. Tap into that and then make yourself available. You know, everybody has a part and a responsibility in the rest of society, but people just don't take those opportunities or they don't make the opportunity. So it's really people saying for themselves, okay, if I want to switch over now and do a tourism component, how am I reaching everybody, right? How am I reaching everybody, but reaching things that matter? So not just sustainability, but like you're saying, racial matters too. How can I reach people? Or am I mindful about the person in the wheelchair? Am I mindful about the blind person? Am I mindful about the Black person? You know, all of those different things. So I would say do your research and then inject yourself into those communities or inject yourself into a different organization where you know you can be that liaison or you can be the reason that somebody learns something new about farming and the education of food in general.
Can I just sort of jump in? First of all, I want to say how proud I am of Martinique. I'm just trying not to get emotional because what this woman has done is really like opened the doors of an industry that has been shut. Even the culinary industry has been shut. She is opening an opportunity not only for Black people, for all people, because history is all people's history. And for her to take it upon herself to see what was missing and provide a service so that people could engage in our stories and understand the history, the racial history around food and farming, and shed light to the surface of people who for so long wanted to indulge in a conversation, wanted to see different people from all different walks of life and continents, and to be able to put it in a travel, a travel concept is extraordinary. So my hats go off to her. She's going to create jobs because at the end of the day, I always talked about this. Don't give me a handout. That's easy. Give me a hand in. Give me empowerment. Give me a way that I can be self-sufficient and self-reliant, and that the people behind me have a way of building a business, having a business. And Martinique, girl, you go, girl. You continue to open those doors, knock down those barriers, because our stories need to be heard and shared.
So there's a few questions in the chat. There's one that's been here a little while. I don't think it's been answered from Bennett. And the question is, what provisions, understanding, and goodwill elements should a farmer be looking for in an agreement with an overnight farm stay company operating on a lease from the farm, where the farm stay operation is bringing visitors to stay on site? So it's a kind of technical question, and I'm not sure if this is one for Karen or for Martinique. I guess it could be for either of you.
I'm not sure I can answer that.
Well, I'm going to
I think
answer it,
Ms.
Martinique. I'm
Karen
going
can
to answer
answer that.
no, because we need to get paid. You know, in the very beginning, when we open our doors, you know, first of all, as farmers, you know, you got a heart and you want to, you know, help people. And so people was, you know, just started to just show up on our farm, show up on the farm. And that's all well and good. But at the end of the day, is that we do a service, and that service is labor, and that labor needs to be paid. And so when we have groups that can afford to pay, they got to pay, because our voices, there's value in what we do, not only in terms of growing food, but our voices are valuable. And so when people come to the farm, those that can pay, they got to pay. That's why we have a community day, which is free. But there's a cost and value in the work and the words that we do. And people have to pay for that service.
Martinique, anything to add to that, or?
No, nothing to add to that.
Yeah.
She
Um,
smashes it.
Yeah, for both of you, another question from the audience is wondering if there's any groups discussing current social injustice regarding immigrants from Mexico and Central America and their precarious working conditions in agriculture.
There are groups. I don't know the names off the top of my head, but there are groups that have specifically been created to protect immigrants in terms of how much they get paid, the labor hours, and have created almost like a, what do you call that? I'm drawing a blank on the word, but have created basically an alliance that protects them. Yes, I would say Google it, but there's multiple ones. And then as you go state by state, the states also have them. And oftentimes they're linked to medical establishments. So like hospitals, right? Where they're like, you can't overwork this group of people, you can't pay them. And then like, they'll be part of like, their marketing or PR where they'll talk about these specific stories. But I would say definitely Google it, because it varies by state, but there definitely is.
You can reach out to Food Chain Workers Alliance that's doing a lot of work around labor rights for immigrants, especially along the food chains, the work that Immokalee workers are doing, really getting the industry to pay, again, more money for the work that immigrants are doing. And then also there's a website called Food First that does a lot of work, a lot of articles, a lot of books around immigrant rights. And at the end of the day, it's important that the immigrant voices are heard. I should not be able, or Martinique should be able to talk about those rights. It's the rights of the immigrants that should be at the forefront, talking about their issues, which is really, really important.
So I just want to do a time check with Lisa, because I know we're at 5 of, I mean, again, I know I said I would like all day. I would have loved for this to have been 90 minutes. But this is just such an incredibly precious and critical start to this conversation. And so I really want to thank you both so much. The chat was going pretty wild with that last question. There were people putting in resources. I know UVM is going to follow up additionally. But Lisa, should I hand this over to you at this point, since we're at 5 of?
I think we have time for maybe one more question. There's sort of that one question that a lot of people voted on, which is wondering what the presenters think about the line between smashing stereotypes in advertising and tokenizing marginalized communities in advertisements.
I love this question. You know why? Because I want to say for years, we've only seen white people reflected on anything. So is that tokenism? Because that's all we've ever seen. So to include somebody who looks like me is not tokenism. That's diversity. That is inclusion. No, you don't have to say, hey, Black girl, I want you on my farm. You don't even change your messaging. You change the photo, because it shows that now you thought about me coming to your destination or coming to your property. And now I see that. Tokenism is what we have seen for years in advertising and marketing. One type of person shown, and that is not a reality of what it looks like when we walk outside every day. So that's tokenism. That is tokenism. If you show somebody in a wheelchair, that means that you thought about somebody in a wheelchair coming to your establishment. Not only that, it is set up for them. You have made sure that there's paths that they can get through with their wheelchair. You have made sure that there's ramp service that they can get through with their wheelchair. It is how you market your business to other people. So when you only show one type of person, you are telling us you only want that type of person there. And if that's not the case, prove it. The easiest way to do that is through social media. And please believe, Black people, Indian people, Mexican people, Asian people, blind travelers, plus size travelers, travelers over the age of 65, look to social media first to see what you have on there. That's how we decide whether or not we're coming there. 70% of us are more likely to go to places where we see ourselves reflected. So if we're not on there, we're not coming. Your fault. That's money you lose out on. So all we're asking is for diversity and inclusion to be at the top of mind when you do anything. If you're looking at that as tokenism, then you have an issue on how you see race. If you didn't think it was tokenism because we've only showed white people, then that is an issue that you have that I need you to get it together with. I need you to put diversity and inclusion at the top of mind. And I'm not sorry for it, because my whole life, I've never seen myself reflected since the past 3 years. That's the only time. So I've been doing this for 3 years. Nobody wanted to listen to me. When people said, well, your voice is not important enough for me to change my marketing scheme. It's important. It is important. It will keep people from coming to what you have. Diversity and inclusion here all the time. No excuses. We shouldn't have to talk about it anymore. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah, thank you, Thank you, Martinique. There's a really quick follow-up question that could be for both of you. And the question was, one question we had as our Black-run farm opened up to tourism is, how would we feel having white people visit to see Black people working?
You know, you listen to me. Own your power. I don't have a problem with white people coming to visit my farm if they're there to hear the story and to hear the truth. I mean, the farm is open. Like I said, my farm is an educational farm. And so we have all walks of life coming to learn about the struggles of women farmers, Black farmers, LGBTQ farmers, and start having those open conversations. And a lot of whites do come because they want to start having those conversations about what food and social justice looks like. And like I said, a lot of y'all are on the sidelines. Y'all don't get involved. You'll read definitions and you'll sit back and you think that you know. And for us, I always tell people, you know what? Make yourself feel uncomfortable to be comfortable. And if whites are feeling uncomfortable, they need to come to our farm to make themselves feel uncomfortable to be comfortable and to have those hard conversations that's needed. So, you know, to the Black farmer that just put that question out, own your power, stand, stand strong in really telling them your story, our story, because our story is the American story. It's not just the Black. Like I said, Black history isn't just a month. I live Black history each and every day.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm gonna show one last slide, which there's no good way to end other than own your power, and to give tremendous thanks to Martinique, Karen, and Lynn for joining us today. I know there's still some questions in the chat and in the Q&A, and what we'll do is we have recorded this, so within a day or two when this gets posted, we'll follow up with an email to all of you with website links and other ways of contacting our presenters. We want to keep this conversation going. Like we mentioned, there's a lot of hard work to do here, and a lot of times we might feel uncomfortable, but this is really just the start of a very important conversation. And since we can't meet in person yet, we're also planning more of these virtual conversations. The next one will be coming up on March 16th, and we'll be looking at the diversity and impact of agritourism in Southern Africa. And then in April, we'll look at a culinary lens on agritourism. And finally, in May, we'll take a look at regional agritourism strategies. And as I mentioned, we're we're continuing to build our webinar series going forward. So if you have ideas for topics or speakers, feel free to reach out to me. We'll follow up with an email with contact info for all of us, and the recordings, resources, and registration. All of it will be posted on our website, www.agritourism.workshop.com. So once again, thank you so much to our panelists, and thanks to all of you for joining us.